Hi Sonal, thank you so much for accepting my invitation and how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Gargi, for having me on the show. I'm happy to be here.
It is a privilege to have you Sonal here, and today we are actually going to talk on a very interesting thing that on how to understand job searching or what exactly the ways it would be to take their career forward. So I have a lot of questions today and probably so much to learn from you. And you have been wonderful. I follow you on LinkedIn, and your Supercharge Fridays are really excellent way of giving your value to the people. Thank you once again for what you do.
Of course, it's my mission. So yeah, I mean, feel free to ask me. The more specific the questions, the more I think the helpful the answers will be.
Correct. So Sonal, first question is that because your background, your professional background have been like you have been a former HR director or you have been an international career coach with extensive experience in helping people, particularly searching jobs and career development. So what exactly inspired you to pursue this field and help others in their professional journeys?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Gargi, it was never a real intention to do what I'm doing. I was actually very happy in my corporate life, right up until it stopped becoming a source of joy for me. I used to be that person who would look forward to Monday morning, and I would lay out the clothes on my bed the night before with including the jewelry, everything I'm going to wear, and my shoes. And I'd go to work and I'd be so happy. I enjoyed just the energy, even the drive to work, even if there was traffic. I used to enjoy that. And I had younger kids at the time, and I was like, this is my time. Like, this is my time to shine, and this is what I do, and I'm really good at it. And then that joy stopped, so I became extremely confused and I spent a lot of time in my lost and found year. And that lasted about a year and a half. And I wasn't sure what I'm doing. The first thing I did was extremely irresponsible. And I recommend nobody do this unless you have a financial cushion. And that is that I left my job without a job in hand. And yeah, you can say it's irresponsible, but I think I was being responsible to myself and my health, especially my mental health, and it was starting to become physical as well because I was quite unhappy where I was. So what next? I spent quite some time looking for the next thing um, outside. And I decided it's going to look like X, Y, and Z. For example, HR director roles, interim. I don't know if I want to be permanent anymore. I want to be in temporary contracts. I wasn't getting the response that I was hoping for, and I became very easily discouraged. Then I remembered the summer of 2018. I looked around and I, I had this unusually large amount of time on my hands, which I never did. And I spent a lot of time in the garden, and I was taking care of the flowers. And in Europe, the summer is beautiful. You have so many flowers, and it goes on for a couple of months. So every time I had a problem, like I didn't know how to take care of this plant or this flower, I was going to YouTube. And again, taking help from YouTube. And I thought this crazy idea came to my head. What if I start a YouTube channel and all these lessons and all these, amazing tips that I have learned over up till then 18 years, living in India, living in South America, and living in Europe, and having worked in HR and having worked in recruiting. And I'm like, I'm useful. Right? I mean, even though during those moments I didn't feel very useful, I thought what I've learned is very useful. Why don't I share this on YouTube? And I released a couple of videos. I did it in a very unorganized way, and I did it from a place of ego, which means that when I saw that the views weren't translating, I stopped because I thought nobody's watching. And I was editing my videos. It would take me over a week to edit one video, and another week to do like the research, etc. So it was like a lot of labor of love. I wasn't organized in terms of batching all of that stuff. So then I said, YouTube is not for me. And then I thought, since I have all these videos already, why don't I just take them and upload them to LinkedIn as native videos, like as if it's in LinkedIn for the first time. And that I noticed was when people started reaching out saying, "Hey, I read this article on LinkedIn, or I watched a video of yours on YouTube. Can we talk?" And before I knew it, I was a career coach. Like, I wasn't intending to be a career coach. I never had this intention. So, long story short, that YouTube channel, which I abandoned, ended up like blowing up years later because of one video on salary negotiation. And the rest is history in terms of like, this is what I do today. I help clients one on one, I help them through group coaching, I help them through digital courses. And for people who don't have any means, any financial means, and they need the help, I have all this so much stuff on my LinkedIn channel, on my LinkedIn profile, my YouTube channel, and my podcast. So it's like, no matter what people like are thinking about, as long as they're unhappy with their career, I want them to know there is something there for them. And this has now become my life's mission.
Extremely inspiring, and the way you put this experience forward to us, your story, because when I follow you on LinkedIn, actually, I first got a hit to your profile through your live only. It caught my eye. And the honesty that I see, the content, it's not made up. It could be very easily understood that it's coming from the bottom of your, from the core of you,
Yeah.
because it's not scripted or just not for
I
doing
don't know. I don't know any other way to be. When people say this, right? And like you meet someone and you're like, this is the way you do it, and how do you do it? Honestly, there is no other way I know. I don't know how to script. I don't know how to lie. I
right.
don't know how to appear and show the glamour of things, because that's not how it is. I mean, it's such a long journey, and I'm far from. I don't consider myself, in a traditional sense, successful. I have a long way to go, but I know I'll get there. I'm in the process, and I'm enjoying the process. I think that is really important. That no matter where we are today, learn
Mhm.
from some mistakes of mine. Do not get led by your ego. If you're producing any kind of content and you're not getting those kind of views, the people who do well are the ones who stick around. Just
Right.
when nobody's watching, nobody's reading, nobody's listening. But you keep doing it and you keep doing it. Obviously, you get feedback. If something isn't working, you can always tweak it and you can change it. Because the last thing you want to do is you're doing something amazing, but you're doing it in the wrong direction. If you need to tweak and you need to go west, go west. Uh,
Mhm.
but the main thing is not to stop.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Sonal, for that piece of advice. Sonal, generally, job searching, this terminology or the process for anybody at any point of the career, it is quite overwhelming and it is competitive. So, my next question would be like, if you could share some strategies or some tips that you can recommend to people who can be, who really want to supercharge their job search and stand out from other candidates.
Yeah, um, perfect. It is overwhelming, and I have lived it as well. So, whatever I'm going to share, I need to give this preface that whatever I'm sharing, if I could do this, anyone can do this, because I am not particularly smart, or clever, or intelligent in the book sense. I'm not. But there are some things that can help you if you know them, and I know these things because I have worked in these rooms. I've sat in these rooms where decisions were made on talent reviews, who gets in, who gets promoted. There's 10 final candidates, who gets in the top 3, and then who gets the top 1. So I leverage that knowledge to the best of my ability, and that helped me a lot with my own job search, because I've done job searching so many times. I've also been laid off, and in so many cultures, especially in India, but not just in India, we have a stigma that if you were laid off, something is wrong with you. Don't talk about it. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. I completely want to destigmatize this because I've been laid off 3 times. And I had a video on, I released a video on LinkedIn in 2019. At the end of 2019, it was Christmas time, and I shared, hey, listen, I know everybody's happy. And around you, if you've just been fired, you've just been laid off, you are not happy. You're looking around and you feel horrible. I know this feeling, and I gave 4 tips on what to do. That was the first time a LinkedIn video of mine completely blew up. There are hundreds of messages I got from people saying, shucks, it's the first time somebody's talking about it. I'm like, listen, I'm sure there are others, but we need to just destigmatize it because there's nothing personal about this. So these steps that I'm going to share are coming from my experience and also with the experience that I have, helped my clients with. So I have a 4-step process, and that process is fluid. It goes here and there because life is fluid. Um, Things can happen last minute, but as far as possible, I make sure we cover these 4. The first is the believability. The believability pillar is the pillar that is most commonly overlooked. And the reason it is overlooked is we want to go straight to applying to jobs. And before we get into that, we need to first understand, how are we believable to ourselves before we are believable to someone else? Do you really believe you are the best person who can work on Python? Or are you doing it because there is demand for it, but you don't like it? And we have a bunch of things there. We do strength tests. You can find online, you can conduct a free strength test. Find out what are you really strong at. And then when you know yourself a little better, leverage that knowledge and look for jobs where your strength is valued, not something you're mediocre at, not something you're weak at, but a strength. So as an example, if you're very strong in communication, right, it's one of your top strengths, it comes up again and again. Not one of your, it is the top strength. And you're applying to a role which has very little people interaction. Let's say something in the back end, like bookkeeping or software engineer, and you're not really working in a team, it's an individual role. Be careful, because sooner or later you will be unhappy. So the believability part has strengths. It also has this part where we ask ourselves, what do we like to do? Not just what I'm good at. I could be really good at editing videos, but I don't like it. Or what I like is making a podcast. So what do we like to do? What are we really good at? And then when you have this knowledge and you're much more clear than you used to be, translate that into a resume, translate that into a LinkedIn profile that articulates your value and it works hard for you. Because the idea of having a fantastic resume is that it opens doors for you. And if your resume is not opening doors and you're not getting calls for interviews, you need to work. You need to look at it. There's nothing wrong with you. You just haven't learned how to articulate that value in words. And a resume is a document that should talk about how good you are and how your achievements are amazing. And the company would be lucky to have you. A lot of us, what we do instead is we look at our resume and we think, oh my gosh, what do I do? I'll just copy paste some of the things in my job description that I had to do, responsibilities. That's not a resume. That's a job description. And the same goes with LinkedIn profile. And the LinkedIn profile is even more because it's social media. And we need to remember that social media, there is social in the media. So make it conversational. Bring in your personality. It's a bit more informal compared to your resume. So this is all related to pillar 1, which is believability. Just pause for a second, just check with you before I continue talking further.
Thank you, Sonal. Thank you so much. I think today, as we are talking about LinkedIn or social media. So I think personal branding is something which is very important in today's time. How important you think is personal branding for a candidate in the job market? What I'm trying to understand that is it really important, or somebody can just overlook this?
What I find a bit amusing is that we have started talking a lot of. I remember talking about personal brand in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
It's become so trendy now. But
Yeah.
if we really think about it, there is nothing new about personal branding. From the time of kings and queens, who gets chosen as this minister, who is chosen, it's because they had a certain reputation for doing something very well. That's essentially what your personal brand is. It's the art of differentiating yourself. That's it. And there's so much like buzz, clickbait and buzzwords on explanations on personal brand. Honestly, this is it. When someone has an interaction with you, whether it's online, whether it's on the phone, whether it's on email or in person, what is it about you that's memorable? What will they take away? Are you just like everyone else or are you different? That's your personal brand. It has always been important. We're just talking about it today. That's it. And one of why would you get called back for the from the interview? It was there was something about you that was memorable, and they wanted to meet you again and again and again. So your personal brand was strong. We just didn't call it. We didn't have the words to describe it back then. So to answer your question, I mean, in a short way, it's as it's more important than it's ever been. Um, the world, the economy, everything. It's much more competitive than it was before. We have way more people. When I started working it was the year 2000. It's 2023 right now. We have way more, like in between my first job and now, a whole generation has been born and has entered the workforce. So there is even more, like we have even more resources out there in the market. It is a bit competitive. And one of the ways you want to stand out is that first pillar we talked about, which is your believability pillar, where you want to supercharge your personal brand and understand what makes you interesting, what makes you different. And something that you're like, I'm not sure it's interesting about me, don't worry about that. Ask someone, talk to a friend, take advice. Stop hiding what makes you different. I could be um, I could be Bengali, but I lived half my life in Orissa, so I speak both languages fluently, and I love software, but at the same time I love poems. That bring that together. Tell a story. And you are different than someone who was born and brought up their whole life in Delhi and went to the best college in India. Because sometimes different is better than better.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think I was going to ask you something regarding strategies or tips. I think you have already, told it in a very subtle way but strong way. Sonal, like as I have been going through most of your Supercharge Fridays, I think I follow you for a long time now. But then, since we are talking, you are my guest today, so obviously this would be an obvious question from me to you today. That when it comes to job search or job applications, so there are a lot of mistakes or misconceptions. Probably the beginners who are starting in their journey they do, or even sometimes when people try to transition their career, particularly in case of getting a job. So in your experiences, can you highlight what are the most common mistakes that people would do, and how exactly to avoid these mistakes?
Yeah, 100%. This week, I'm going to be releasing a video on YouTube on literally top 5 job search mistakes that I made in my own career so that people can learn from my own mistakes so they don't have to repeat it. So it's a very relevant topic. Um, I think the one of the biggest mistakes is only focusing on quantity, which means today I applied to 20 jobs. Today I applied to 5 jobs. I'm feeling so good about myself. I'm going to put the laptop down. I need to take a break. I'm going to take a walk and then I'm going to chill out with my family. The illusion of productivity. Applications can make you feel like you've done a lot of work today. And if you think back, Gargi, I'm going to ask you this. Do you remember the first time you got a job?
Yeah, I do.
How many jobs have you held till now?
Well, probably 4 or 5, because I switched very quickly in my career to
Yeah, yeah.
entrepreneurship.
So in these 4 or 5 jobs before entrepreneurship, do you remember how you got these jobs from the top of your head? I'm going to put 2 categories:
Uh-huh.
applying or referred. Somebody referred you.
Actually, my first job was just came like out of the blues, and I used to do a lot of cold emails. In my time, emails was not so very popular, but I used to do that. So my first job was just by application, but later on, definitely I took referral, and that helped me. Though the job which I'm mentioning here is about I applied it, but then a reference helped me definitely.
A
Plus
referral
recommendation.
helped you. So we know this, but we've forgotten that
Correct.
applications are nice and useful, but they're not enough. Make relationships and deepen and strengthen relationships you already have. with people in your target companies. So when the time comes and there is a role open, you are the first person they think about. So if you do this 10 times a week, 12 times a week, and you're having a coffee morning with someone over Zoom, it's free. How many people do that? So continue to apply. I'm not saying don't apply, because you will find coaches online who say on LinkedIn who say applications are dead. No, you should, I will help you to get a job without applying online. Why don't do both? I've also found great jobs at senior levels by applying online. But the sweet spot is where you find something randomly. And if possible, look in the company website. Don't just look on LinkedIn or Naukri or Monster. Look in the company website, because they own all those much more and they have more control. And they don't have to pay. They don't have to pay LinkedIn. They don't have to pay Naukri. You come directly to them. So they're happier. Everybody's happy. And focus on those relationships. So it's like, if someone's listening right now and thinking, yeah, that's no nice, you're very lucky if you knew people. I don't know anybody. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Firstly, get out of the victim mindset, because the victim mindset is very seductive. I have been in this. I've been laid off, like I said, multiple times. The first time I was laid off, it took me a very long time to get a job. Very long time. I also decided at the time, chalo, okay, great time to expand the family, and I had another kid. So it ended up becoming a couple of years. But in those couple of years, my mental health and my just like I was missing work, right? And then there is also this patriarchy. It's like, no, you're a woman. It's okay. You take care of them. Like, yeah, I can take care, and I'm very happy to be a mom again. But it's not enough. Then what, right? And then the gap becomes longer and longer. So I know what that feels like. And during this time, I remember thinking, people don't understand how smart I am. It's their fault. What is wrong with the world? And you start thinking like a victim. And if you are there, even remotely, if you are there, even a little bit, you got to snap out of it. And instead, see who are the people in your network. You have warm contacts and cold contacts. Warm contacts are people you're in touch with on a more regular basis. Cold contacts are people you haven't spoken to for years. There's research from the 1970s that people who end up helping you in your career are actually cold contacts. The technical word is weak ties, strong ties and weak ties. But because of ego, we don't reach out to our weak ties. If someone reaches out to you, Gargi, out of the blue, and they need help to get into dentistry, and you used to know them a long time ago, and they need your help, what are you going to say? Are you going to say, how dares this person ask me for help? No, you will want to do it. But people are not mind readers. They don't know, they want to help. Most of us want to help. We feel good helping. So think about it. By reaching out to your network, you're actually helping them to live their purpose. Most of us want, our purpose involves helping people. We just feel good. It's selfish. Yes, it helps the other person, but it's selfish because it feels good to us. So if you reach out to that person and you ask, I'm not saying every single person will reply. Maybe, I don't know, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10 reply. Your odds of getting something through this are much higher than applying online, where if you applied 100 jobs, usually you get calls for, what is it, 3, 4, 5. So the odds are completely different. Like, as a percentage wise, huge difference. So I would focus in terms of my strategy, I would focus in terms of the networking, relationships, and you don't have to use the word networking in a icky way, because it does get used a lot. Networking, come on, let's do networking. What does that even mean? It just, for me, it's reigniting old relationships, starting new relationships with intention, with strategy. Either you can help them or they can help you, but not wasting time. Let's go for a movie and there's no intention. No, those are friends, those are different. But think about professional relationships who can be useful. And somebody could become a mentor for you. You might become a mentor for someone. So it's very mutually beneficial. We don't spend enough time on this. Why? It takes time. And by applying online only, and that's all we do, we think our brain is tricked into thinking that we did something useful. And there is a shortcut to the feeling of good. Now let me go and watch my Netflix. I'm done for the day. If you want real results, you need to put in a different way of, real effort in a different way.
Right. So I think that is very crucial that you said that to reach out to people without ego, whomever who have been connected. Because I remember my case, the question that you were asking me just few seconds back, because the reference that came, it was one of my uh, you know uh, professor who was in my undergraduation. So I was not getting recommendations for that I needed to for that application. So I think I reached out to her almost after 7 8 years, and it's just her recommendation came in 5 minutes.
That's a weak tie. That's a
Yes,
weak tie, and we hesitate with weak ties because it's been such a long time. But
exactly.
you're proving this example perfectly, this research perfectly, that it's the weak ties that help us.
Exactly, exactly. So when you were giving this advice, it just, I was very much relating to it. It struck my mind, and it's very, very true, because it's the truth. I mean, that's the fact. There is nothing else beyond it. So as we are talking about networking, so Sonal, can you tell us any tips? Because I have seen, like, I have also seen people that sometimes they hesitate to approach strangers. That is one thing which I have seen myself. So, is there any typical tips or things where people can come out of this shackle and they can
Hmm.
really grow their network?
Yeah,
It will be
I
very
do.
helpful
I
to share.
do have. I have two tips here. The first tip is never ask for a job. Never. Okay. The world can be a cruel place, and the fact that you are asking, it's, I don't want you to think that you are asking anybody for a favor. Instead, ask for advice. Make it about them, which means do your homework. Do not be lazy. And if this is a person you don't know, I highly recommend that you first reach out to people that with whom you have some connection. They're not complete strangers, because why will a complete stranger help you? I mean, I wouldn't. I get emails all the time and they're this long. Can you help me? Can't, right? Time is limited. I wish I could help everyone. But if it's someone who says, a friend of mine, I'm like, yeah, sure. Because there is a sense of reciprocity, right? Because this is a friend of mine, she's good for me, and she's a nice friend, and I want to help. So start with people in your strong ties and weak ties. But you can always say that you have a plan, you have a plan, and you're looking forward to transitioning your career, or you're looking for a job, and be specific. When you ask somebody for advice, I'm looking for a job, can you give me some advice? This is the worst question in the world. It is lazy, it is not thought through, and it is putting all the effort on the other person. Most of the time, you will not get a reply. Instead, focus on explaining. Listen, I've been following you for a while, right? And seeing your journey. And last time we met was 2005. I know it's been a long time. I hope you're doing well. I'm looking at transitioning, and I see that you're in this industry, and I want to be also. I would love to be in this industry as well. Is there any way I could speak with you for 20 minutes one afternoon? I know you're really busy. I promise it's going to be 20 minutes. Now, let me buy you coffee, or if it's in person, and if it's on Zoom, then say, I have 3 questions, and ask those questions beforehand. The person will say, okay, these are not generic random questions. These are questions that she actually thought about, because I can actually help her. They are so relevant to what I do today that other person will want to help you. So, what would be your best advice for someone like me who wants to get into Apple? What would be the best? So just leave it. Do not have an expectation that they're going to refer you, because why should they? What is in it for them? But make it clear you're looking for a change. You're looking for a job, but doesn't mean you ask them, do you have any jobs for me? When we get emails or questions like that, most of us feel very bad, because we can't help the person, right? When somebody asks you for a job, Gargi, immediately, and they don't know you,
I
you
know.
it's you're not a bad person, but there is a good chance you will not reply.
Yes,
So we
because
don't do this. We don't do this. We focus instead. All whenever you want a job, or I heard this from it's very interesting. Priyanka Chopra's manager Anjula Acharya said this in a panel discussion a few months ago. She said, "Whenever you want money, ask for advice. Whenever you want advice, ask for money." Or I like the first one. Whenever you want job, ask for advice. And the second tip I have is, you will meet people every day. You will meet people online. You will see somebody on LinkedIn. You will see somebody in your real life. You will see somebody in a high school reunion. Every day you will see someone new. It is an opportunity to get to know one more person. You could even be at a random networking event. Most people hate the idea of networking events. It feels artificial. And you are like, I can't wait to leave, because people are exchanging their business card, and those business cards will go in the dustbin. We know that. You will never see it again. So every time you meet someone new, try and replace one emotion with the second. The first emotion is confirmation. The second emotion is curiosity. Now, what do I mean by this? Confirmation and curiosity are opposites. Confirmation is, I don't know who Gargi, Goswami is. She wants to talk to me. Never met her before. I don't think this is for me. And oh, where is she from? Oh, she's from Chennai. Chennai people are like this, X, Y, and Z. That is confirmation. A curiosity would be, I wonder who this person is and why is she reaching out? What does she want? Let me go and see her profile. Oh, this is interesting. I'd like to get to know more about her. Curiosity is where you have a blank mindset, right? And in a networking event, you talk to someone, and immediately when they open their mouth, unfortunately for us in India, we tend to be more judgmental than others, because our last name already tells people where we are from. Our accent tells people what is our mother tongue, and how we dress, everything. There is huge, anybody who's watching this and denies it and has a hateful comment, feel free. I will never agree with you, because this is the reality of how things are in. So it is a great playground to practice curiosity instead of confirmation, because you will stand out when you're meeting people. Like, oh, I see you work in finance. Oh, I see. Oh, okay, what were you? Have you always been in finance? Oh, I see. You're unemployed currently. First reaction when you hear someone is unemployed, you think, oh my God, what a useless person. What am I going to learn from them? Oh, but what were you doing before? Question, answer, question, answer, conversation, conversation. It's a tennis match. And before you know it, you might just become friends. You might just end up getting a referral from somebody, and they're like, the only reason they did it is because you looked interested. You looked interested in them, as opposed to, I don't think I want to talk to him. He looks like these engineer types and R&D, and people in R&D are like this, or people in science are like this. You have wasted an opportunity if you think like that. So I can't tell you how much my life changed when I started approaching things from curiosity versus confirmation. So these are the two tips I have with regards to networking. So the first one is, look at it from a point of view advice, and not, hey, could you be my mentor? Don't ask people that. Instead, ask them for what would be their best advice, and how did you get here? How did you get to this journey? How did you get into HSBC? Don't be like, how did you get to where you are today? Because that shows you don't know nothing about them. You didn't do any homework. But the more homework you do, the more it shows. And guess what? The other person, it'll end up being so fun. It'll even become sometimes 20 minutes becomes 1 hour. Doesn't it become one? When we really like someone, we want to help them, we will tell the assistant, it's okay. Can you cancel my call? Or, we kept 20 minutes, but in reality, we had more time. But when we want to help the other person because the other person looks worth it. So that would be the first advice. Always ask for advice, not for a job. And the second is, replace confirmation with curiosity.
Thank you, Sonal. Thank you so much. It was such a such a clarity. Sonal, as we all know that in today's world, it's more about dynamism. It is becoming dynamic when it comes to jobs or careers. Because what I'm trying to understand is that what steps can individuals take to successfully navigate and excel in a career transition, especially when they are switching roles or probably industries. And this question I'm asking in mind, keeping in mind that I have seen a lot of women who are educated, who have been in good corporate jobs, but now they have had to go on a career break. And so I see a lot of lot of discouragement in them, or a lot of hesitations, because they are not doing something. I mean, they are very scared to step into something they don't know. But probably that would be their best choice when they are on a career break, or they're trying to bounce back. So that's the mindset which I have behind this question.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, the one of the main reasons that women don't feel valued is because the work they are doing is not paid. It is as simple as that. It is unpaid work. If they were to disappear and their spouse, their partner has to take care of everything, things will fall apart. Can you imagine if all the women who've taken time off and they are skilled at what they do, if they disappeared and they went and did something else, and the childcare and the housework and all of that stuff was left to the other person, things would fall apart and people would realize there is value in what she was doing. The difference is she wasn't getting paid for it. So, first of all, we need to acknowledge it is unpaid work. It is still work. It is unpaid, but it is still work. So I have a long answer for this, and I'm not gonna bore you with all the details because I have a 7-step process. Because career break and career pause is something that's close to my heart, because like I mentioned to you, went through a career pause myself. The first one was 2.5 years. The second one was 10 months. And I know what it does to your self-esteem. I know what it does to your confidence. And even when you're very good at what you do, your ego starts telling you, what's the point? The world has moved ahead. You are still behind and you're not updated. So, to give you a quick answer on this, I think the first thing you want to do is pay attention that you have had lots of skills over the years. Lots of skills over the years. Dump them into your, like a sheet of paper and a pen, just dump all of them down. All the skills you have. What is a skill? It is something that you do well. You've seen that you do it well, you do it better than others. That's a skill. And then don't self censor and think, I'm really good at conflict. Even in my street, there's always two neighbors who are fighting. I come in and there's peace. That's a skill. It's called conflict resolution. Every skill you have, if you have worked during a career break, remember, unpaid work is work. That is a skill that is valued in the corporate world and people will pay for it. The most important thing, going back to my first pillar, is believability. Do you believe it has value? If you believe it has value, then put those skills down, all of those skills down. And then look at the jobs that are out there in the market today. You're literally going shopping. You're window shopping. You're seeing what's out there, what's for sale, what are they selling, what are the jobs. And you're like, I like this and I like this, but I don't have the skills. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to do the transferability of your skills with what they are looking for. Remember, so the simple example was, anytime I have two kids and they start fighting, but I come in and there is peace. So this conflict resolution is a skill. You're very good at that. Anybody who's been home with two children and gets through the day in one piece by giving them breakfast, lunch, and dinner and maintaining a hygienic and safe environment for them while making sure they go out regularly for work. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. Ask a man to do it. Even one day, I challenge you. And I'm not stereotyping. I don't mean to stereotype, because there are a lot of men who are present fathers, especially in my generation. I'm talking about those who are not. So you need to really put these down. Like, oh, I'm really good at writing. Okay, these people are looking for excellent communication skills. So you need to do a detailed mapping. And I highly recommend this. And I'm not saying this because I am one, but I highly recommend work with someone, work with a coach, because you have way too many blind spots. You cannot see things from an external point of view because you don't see yourself that way. A butterfly doesn't know how beautiful it is because it's just flying. That's what it does. But people around it say how beautiful. So the same with you. You don't see that value because you take it for granted. And when you look at the transferability of that skill, the next thing you want to focus on is the messaging. The messaging needs to be super simple and super clear. And that is, I was really great at this. I was doing this for some years. Today I do this. Based on everything I've learned in all these years, including this career pause, I'm excellent at this particular thing. And that is what your resume has to be doing for you. That is what your LinkedIn has to be doing for you. What does not define you is that I'm a full-time mom today. And a LinkedIn headline that says actively looking for opportunities, that does not define you. What defines you is the whole picture, everything you've done. You've got to own that. And that messaging has to be so good and so clear in the eyes of a person who's never met you before. And if it's not, work and change it. Because you could be doing the wrong thing without realizing, and you're like hitting your head against the wall. There's so many ways to do this. I've helped clients who've been out of the workforce for 6 years, 8 years, and got not like, oh, entry level job, because no, top jobs. Because the other side needs to see you and understand your value. Like, yeah, I remember when I left corporate and I was on a break and then I had another kid, I thought my brain, all I think about is diapers and laundry, and that's all I do. And I thought, who's going to value my HR skills? But when they met me and they interviewed me and they said, yes, we do, the right people will value you. The wrong people will use it against you and try to pay you less, and they are not for you. Doesn't mean that there are not others in the market, right? So yeah, you can take that one that pays you less. It just, you can get a foot back into the door, sure, and then leave. The moment something better comes along, leave. Because you have to be selfish when it comes to your career. Nobody's thinking about your career except you. So this is a short answer. There's much more to this, but to give you a brief glimpse of it, it is 100% possible to go from taking a pause in your career for whatever reasons, especially as women, and then getting back at a good level and at a good salary. It is 100% possible. I've done it. I'm not that smart. My clients have done it. We're not unusually intelligent. If we can, anyone can.
Thank you, Sonal. Thank you so much for your time. And it was wonderful talking to you. And all these tips and advice that we have got today is very valuable. And definitely, I think once this session is over, I'll have all the, if you can share your contacts or how can people reach you for your mentorship and your LinkedIn. Definitely, as my suggestion would be, please follow Sonal on LinkedIn. She's anyway one of the LinkedIn top voices. So you really don't want to hunt her on LinkedIn, but I think you can just type her name on LinkedIn and please follow her on Fridays, just like you follow Eclectica on Fridays. Yeah, so thank you, Sonal. Thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful meeting you and getting all this advice from you.
My pleasure, Gargi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.